G'day everyone, I'm Ray Munday and welcome to my first video on the science of RC. My goal with this series is to share some of the knowledge I've learned over 25 years of RC racing, the theory behind why we do things, and then how to apply it to your racing. The first topic that I want to cover is the most complex piece of equipment that we have. It's our brain. Nothing to do with the cars. RC racing, we are mental athletes. We have to control small cars going high speed, they're non-linear, we've got a lot of different forces of nature working there. But very few of us actually work on the mental performance, which is really the most important part of any racing package. The brain is not fully understood. It's a very, very complex piece of equipment, but there's been a lot of research on how to get the most out of your brain in a sporting sense. And what I want to cover in this video are some of the really simple and easy things to implement that I think will help you get a lot more out of your racing. The best thing about all this is it's free. It doesn't cost anything to work on your brain, just a few minutes of your time, and it can be done anywhere. You might notice in the background, I'm actually in a hotel room in Japan. I'm over here on business. I'm 10,000 kilometers away from my equipment and my nearest track, but using these techniques, I can still practice. If you've got a brain and you've got 5 minutes of your time, you can practice. You don't need to be at the track. So a couple of the key things to talk about. Firstly, really important with any mental preparation is to focus on your performance, not your result. Focusing on the result, saying, I want to get first or second or top three in this race or something like that, it doesn't achieve anything. It doesn't make you do anything any better. And all it does is actually create negative energy, like a stress, which makes you perform worse. It's much better to think about what are you going to do? How are you going to do things? Come up with a couple of focus items that you really want to think about while you're racing. The second most important thing, or probably the most important thing of your brain though, is there are two parts of how your brain works. Really, there's the conscious part. This is the bit that's thinking all the time. So this is like the logical part of your brain. It's very smart, but it's slow. The second part of your brain, or your brain function, is the subconscious. The subconscious is the bit that does actions automatically in the background. So like when you're running or catching a ball or balancing, that all just happens naturally in your background. It's much faster. Your subconscious brain can handle around 10 million times the amount of information that your conscious brain can handle. So that's the bit that you want to be driving. That's the bit that acts fast, but it's not very smart. It only does what it's kind of programmed to do. Now, the good news is you can program that part pretty easily. So I'm going to run you through a couple of the tricks to do that. The main one is what's called mental programming or visualization. You might have heard that from some sports people. And essentially what you're doing is using your conscious brain to program your subconscious so that it does the driving automatically. What you want is you're driving the part that needs to be very fast and reactive. You want that to be done by your subconscious so that it's quick and easy. Then your conscious brain is free to look at the things that you need to start thinking about. What's going on with the track? How's your car driving? What's going on with the race strategy around you? What do you need to think about? So, mental programming, it's pretty straightforward. Firstly, there's been a lot of research into how to make it most effective. And the best thing is to be very relaxed. If you're stressed, it doesn't work. So, in fact, the best time that they found is just before you go to sleep, and you're almost in like a semi-dream phase. So for me, the most effective time I find is when I'm laying in bed at night, winding down after a day. And basically what you're going to be doing is running through in your head the actions you need to do to control your car. So in our case, we've got steering and throttle. Get yourself nice and relaxed, take some deep breaths, close your eyes, and then you visualize your car driving around, and you are consciously thinking, how am I steering? How am I using the throttle? How will the car react? What do I need to do in this situation? It's important to do it properly and not make mistakes. If you practice a mistake in your head, it's going to happen when you drive. So you've got to be kind of being very deliberate And in fact, you can do it quite slowly. You don't need to be going at full speed. It doesn't need to be fast. You can do these things slowly. What you're doing is using your conscious brain to really start to program what your subconscious is doing, so that when that happens in real life, it's ready for it and it does the right thing. So what you think about, though, depends on what stage of racing you're at. If you're a complete noob, you've never been on a track before, then what you really need to be focusing on is getting it completely automatic in your brain, which way you need to be steering to make the car turn right, left, when it's coming in different directions. So I'd be starting off with something like just really simple stuff. Driving the car away from you, turning right, turning left, seeing where the car goes. Then having the car come back towards you, and then turning right and turning left, but being very conscious to think, okay, when I turn right, it's going to go to my left, and when I turn left, it's going to go to my right. You start to do this in your head, and you'll find that after doing this for some time, these reactions will become much more natural, and you're not having to think about it. If you're an experienced racer, then you can be starting to think about how to drive better around a particular track. If I go to a new track, I try to get a picture of the track from the driver's stand, like a panorama or something, and then I visualize going around the track, and nice and slowly, but just you start to look for a few things. Okay, if my car's going to slide out on this corner, how am I going to react? Going over jumps, how am I going to react if the car goes nose down and nose up over a jump? So you start to kind of think up these scenarios and practice through them. And then, when you're, I guess, trying to get the every little last bit out of your driving, you can start to focus on some more advanced techniques. And what I'm going to cover over the future of these videos are the ways to do that properly, so you're not practicing the wrong things. But for example, for me, a few years ago, to be honest, I'm not very good at jumping. When I started, jumps weren't big. I've had to really work on that, and that took a lot of mental practice. And now I think that's not too bad, but by utilizing this technique of visualization and mental programming, I think that really helped my racing in that there. One of the most important things with any mental work is to be relaxed. If you have negative emotions like stress or anger or frustration, it really slows down your ability of your subconscious brain to work properly. You tend to drive more consciously, and then you make more mistakes. So we can practice these mental visualization techniques in bed, or anywhere you've got kind of 5 minutes to yourself. And it's important to do it over and over, not just once or twice. Do it over and over. But when you get to the track, it's then important to be able to kind of activate that part of your brain while you're driving. And again, you need to be relaxed. So what I tend to do is just before, maybe a few minutes before the race, take some big deep breaths. You get yourself nice and calm, and that helps your subconscious start to work better as well. There are some different triggers that some people talk about to get that working, and that's different for everybody, but the key point is to make sure that you're actually using that part of your brain to drive. One of the other really important and really interesting parts of the research that's been done in the human brain is how to actually make the information in your brain flow better. So your brain is a left and a right hemisphere, and your left hemisphere controls the right-hand side of your body, and your right hemisphere controls your left side of your body. But between those two, there's a connection. It's called the corpus callosum, and it's basically like a tube of fibers that controls all the information going back and forth. And what's been found is actually you can make that flow better through exercises that get the left and right hand of your part of your body working together. So a really simple one is one called the cross crawl. You stand up and you literally lift your left leg and touch your left knee with your right hand, and then you lift your right knee and touch it with your left hand, and so on and so forth. You do that for a couple of minutes, and you'll find that actually you kind of feel more coordinated. Things feel like they happen in slow motion. And it's I often do that while waiting to go up before a race. Kind of helps me calm down a little bit, helps me focus. You start to think about how you're going to attack a particular part of the track or that sort of stuff. And you'll find that doing a lot of these things here it stops you from getting as nervous. If you don't think about something, your brain tends to start to get nervous. But if you really focus on a few items, usually before any race, I try to pick 2 or 3 things. Maybe I'm going to try and brake better in this corner, or it's windy, so I'm going to have to be careful of the way that I jump over a particular jump, or I want to feel what's the traction like in a certain section of track. You pick those couple of things there. It stops you from getting as stressed through the race, because you're kind of making your brain think about something rather than getting nervous. Look, there's a lot of really good information out there, but there's one kind of Bible book that I highly recommend that you look at. It's called Inner Speed Secrets by a guy called Ross Bentley. He's a full-size professional driver coach, and his book for like Formula One, Champ Car, those sort of guys. And his book is very focused on the mental preparation there. I highly recommend you get that. I've got it on my phone, on the Kindle app. I read it a lot and go back over it. I think it's one of the best investments you can make. Look, I think I highly recommend trying to get the most out of your mental game. It's crazy. We spend so much time and effort on our cars and our setup, but the bit that has the most influence, I find very few people actually put any time into. So I hope these couple of tips here have given you some ideas of what to work on, and that they help you out with your racing. If you've got any questions or comments, hit me up on my Facebook page, Ask Ray Munday. I've also got an RC Tech page. They're linked in the video blurb, and we'll see you at the track. See ya.